Good morning, I'm Ron Lehr. I'm an attorney here in the Denver area, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the paper that we did on new utility business models and regulatory incentives. I want to recognize my co-author, another former regulator here in Colorado named Ron. I recruited him because I thought he was a bright guy. He was coming off the commission. Now he's been recruited by some other people that want him to do some other work. But we'll soldier on and try to fill the gap that he leaves. He wants to meet with you, particularly if you have a member on the Senate Energy Committee. I want to also remember Rosemary Pooler, who was the first chairman of the Energy Conservation Committee when we established it in 1983. She was a very formidable New York regulator and led us to this establishment of the committee within NARUC. And to say to those of you who may have survived the first Brown administration and are now still active in the second, I won't mention any names except for Jim Tarpey's, that our goal should be to be around in the third Brown administration to make these, really bring these things home. The paper we wrote really takes off from Peter Fox Penner's Smart Power book, set of motivations. There's a series of things in addition to distributed generation, opportunities in transmission, big investment requirements, air quality issues. You know and deal with these all the time. And Sue Tierney has put the proposition forward that we started our paper with, that this is a very special time. I guess we could argue whether it's more special than the 70s or the 90s or other times, but it's certainly a confluence of events that suggests that utilities ought to look at what they're doing, and maybe we could do some things better that would bring more benefits to consumers faster. So the motivation set is broad. It's led, I think, in a lot of cases by people who are concerned about the DG penetrations that we're seeing in a few places, but there are a lot of other motivations as well. We went around and talked to a number of CEOs and regulators in the country and have reported back to the Energy Foundation our findings from a series of structured interviews and a couple of policy dialogues that we held on a cross-cultural basis, mixing up regulators and utility folk with advocates and environmentalists and smart folks. And basically tested the notion, is this the right time? Is there sufficient interest to think that discussions in a serious way about changing how we do things are something that we should be doing now, making time for now. And our findings on that were that the companies are certainly interested in this. It's very interesting to see the tracks of the consulting firms who consult the boards of directors of the major utilities. They will give you a web page in which they'll say, we're consulting utilities on this kind of stuff, and we're talking to them about these kind of things, and then it kind of fades out because they want to sell you the rest of the ideas that they have rather than just giving them to you. So we know they're out there. We know there's a lot of interest in this, and we know that boards of directors are meeting and managements are having people work up ideas in this area. Our CEOs told us that they think it's serious. Some of them are taking it very seriously and think they need to move along, but they need some certainty. They need a framework in which they can move forward. One of them said to us, "Just tell us what you want. We'll take care of it." Okay, so can we together figure that out? And it's one of these deals where it's not my department; it's someone else. They want public policy to be certain. We want public policy. People want corporate policy to be certain. You're going to do that together, so you need to have some discussions. We found that rarely do leadership in the utility and utility commissions, their regulators and public policy makers have frank face-to-face discussions. There's a whole army of experts and lawyers and others who are in between these folks who have these responsibilities, and that can be a burden. We heard loud and clear that there really isn't a place and a time to sit down and roll up sleeves and change things. So we did find a lot of interest in this, and then the third aspect of this that we looked into and that you'll find described in the paper is, are there some options that we should look at? I mean, are there some real possibilities going forward that make sense and that could be the grist for these discussions that we're proposing. And we posited in the paper that you'll read sort of a minimum, moderate, and maximum role for the utility, because it's a big country with a lot of different levels of interest in what utilities ought to be doing. In some places where the market is the focus, the utilities will end up doing the minimum amount. Some people told us, just keep the utilities out of this. Innovation isn't what they do. You want to crowd them into a corner where they can do the least damage, and make sure that their role is as minimized and as clear a monopoly enterprise under regulation as possible. On the other hand, we posited a maximum utility role. This was a little harder to justify, but we looked at the Moreland Commission report, and we thought of Nebraska, frankly. You know, there's public policy that says the utilities are supposed to take care of this whole business, and there are circumstances you can imagine where society would turn to the utility and say, you're going to do this from end to end. It's an emergency, and you take care of it. So there's a broad range of possibilities. We looked at Rios model in the UK, which has a performance basis. We think that performance regulation has some things to recommend it. So we have some options. We're putting them out there. We're looking for people who are actually interested enough to start this up in their own circumstance, and we want to try to be helpful when those things come up. So I'll stop there. Thanks for your attention. I appreciate being with you.